Curiosity. Bradley had always imagined himself as a superhero. He would climb up onto the kitchen cabinets to solve the mystery of what his parents kept on top of the fridge. He'd sneak out his window at night to stand on the roof to pretend to be Batman overlooking the city. He even once stuck a fork in an electrical outlet to see if it would give him superpowers. It didn't, but even at 12 years old, he still had hopes it might someday. He lived next door to a girl his age named Margot. They'd been friends ever since either of them could talk. She was the only kid that was maybe even more imaginative than him. They'd get off the bus after school and immediately run off into the woods behind their houses. They had a little clearing surrounded by fallen trees that they liked to call the fort, where they would talk and bounce their wild theories off each other. While riding the bus home, Bradley mentioned that he'd overheard his parents talking about an old abandoned house on the other side of the forest behind their houses. Margot immediately wanted to find it, so they agreed to meet at the fort after the bus dropped them off. They both ran home and dropped off their backpacks, each grabbed a flashlight, and met at the fort no more than a few minutes after exiting the bus. Now off they went, blindly looking for the mystical old house that might not even be there. It actually wasn't too far of a trek before they saw the old tin roof through the trees. The place looked like it hadn't been occupied in over 20 years. What little of the white siding they could see was stained green with moss, and bushes and small trees were growing up around the foundation. The first floor windows weren't even visible through all the brush. "We should find a way in," said Bradley excitedly. Margaret was already searching. They circled around to the front of the house, which wasn't quite as grown up considering it had a stone sidewalk and covered front porch. Bradley led the way. He'd never mentioned it, but he had a crush on Margot and always felt he had to step up and be the first one into anything that might be dangerous. He pushed all the branches and shrubs to the side as they crossed onto the rotting old porch. The front door was closed, but the knob turned and the door opened with ease. Both kids entered slowly. It was fascinating. The brush growing up over the windows blocked most of the light streaming in through the windows, but there was enough to see clearly. They were in an old living room that was surprisingly in good shape. All of the furniture was still present, and despite being moldy and covered in dust, everything was rather well kept. They walked across the room and into an old kitchen. Dirty dishes were piled in the sink, and the trash can was knocked over, spilling pretty much everything that had been inside. There was a nasty stain under the refrigerator where all of the juices of whatever contents there had been had leaked out. On the other side of the dusty old dining table was a staircase leading to the second floor. They climbed up the old staircase, stepping into a much brighter hallway and exploring the old bedrooms upstairs. Each room was a disaster. It was like a tornado had come through. Clothes were thrown all around, and whatever pillows and sheets were on the bed had been tossed to the floor, exposing the old stained brown mattress. They quickly became bored with the upstairs and headed back to the ground floor, hoping to find a spooky basement to explore. It took some searching, but they managed to find what was most likely the basement entrance, under the side of the staircase leading to the second floor. It was through a small door in the kitchen and around the corner of a short hallway. Oddly, it had been chained shut. Deep claw marks were on the floor under the door, like something had been clawing to try to get out. "That's weird. Maybe there was some sort of creature locked down there," said Bradley. "Let's open it," Margot responded. Bradley was like, "This place has been abandoned for years. Whatever it was is most likely dead by now." "That's actually a really good point," Bradley said. "I think I saw a hammer in the kitchen. I could go get it and try to pry these chains off." He slipped back into the kitchen and found the hammer, returned to the basement door and began prying at the nails holding the chains in place over the door. It took some time and effort, but the chains fell away and there was nothing left to hold the door shut. Bradley kept the hammer in his hand, imagining himself as Thor about to enter the den of a slumbering beast. The fact that someone had chained the door shut to detain something, and the kids had just released it, didn't exactly sit well with them. They took a few deep breaths and mentally prepared themselves. Margot got her flashlight ready. Bradley reached out and grabbed the doorknob, turning it and slowly opening the door as
Watching those two kids sprint from my house was so satisfying because I waited so long for someone to release me. And when I looked down where they had been standing, it made me chuckle when I saw a flashlight, a hammer, and a turd.